So hello everyone, in this audio class we will discuss the 20 most important questions from the chapter Geomorphic Landforms and Evolution, chapter 7 from the book Fundamentals of Physical Geography. That questions and answers will discuss that can be asked in the KVS and NVS interview preparation. So let's get started with the question number 1. How do you distinguish youth, mature and old river stages? So the youth stage is defined by high gradient and vertical down cutting or V-shaped valleys, and the mature stage involves channel widening and meander development. The old stage is characterized by deposition forming extensive floodplains and deltas. For example, the upper Himalayas in youth stage and the Ganges delta is in old stage. Question number 2. What are river terraces? So terraces are the benches or steps above the current floodplain. They form when a river cuts down into its own previous deposited alluvium due to rejuvenation or tectonic upliftment. For example, the terraces along the river Narmada demonstrate distinct phases of river rejuvenation. Question number 3. Mechanism of meander formation. So, meanders result from lateral erosion on the outer bank or the concave bank and deposition on the inner bank or the convex bank as a river flows through a gentle gradient. For example, the shifting path of Koshi river in lower course. Question number 4. Significance of natural levees. So these are embankments formed by the deposition of coarse material during flood events along the channel margins. For example, the levees along the Mississippi or Brahmaputra reduce flood risk for adjacent plains. Question number 5. Alluvial fans versus deltas. So fans formed at the mountain foot where the river gradient suddenly drops, forcing deposition, and delta formed at the river mouth where the river loses its load carrying capacity upon entering a large stagnant water body. For example, Koshi fan that is found in the foothills of Himalayas versus the Sundarban delta. Question number 6. How do sinkholes evolve in karst? So groundwater charged with carbon dioxide dissolves soluble limestone, creating vertical pipes or funnel shaped depressions called sinkholes. For example, the karst landscape of Chitrakoot region of Madhya Pradesh. Question number 7. Stalactites versus stalagmites. So stalactites or that are hanging and stalagmites are rising are the secondary deposits in limestone caves. They form when calcium rich water drips, leaving behind calcite precipitates. For example, the caves in Meghalaya plateau. Question number 8. What is a sark? So sark is a deep bowl shaped depression with steep walls serving as the source or head of a glacial valleys. For example, the sark in the upper reaches of Gangotri glacier. Question number 9. What is a moraine? So moraines are unsorted glacial debris. Terminal moraines mark the farthest extension of the glacier. For example, the debris ridges found at the snout of Pindari glacier. Question number 10. Glacier versus river valleys. So glacial valleys are U-shaped due to massive glacial abrasion and plucking, whereas river valleys are V-shaped due to vertical down cutting. The U-shaped valleys for example, the U-shaped valleys found in the valleys in the Jaskar range. Question number 11. Process of sea cliffs and terraces. So sea cliffs are formed by wave undercutting at the base. As the cliff retreats, a wave cut platform or wave cut terrace is left behind at the base. For example, the jagged the jagged coast cliffs of the Konkan coast. Question number 12. How does a stack form? So, wave erosion creates a sea arc. When the arc collapses, the remaining seaward portion stands as an isolated pillar called a stack. For example, the coastal stacks along the western Ghats. Question number 13. What is the difference between spits and bars? So, a spit is a ridge connected to the land at one end growing into the sea. A bar seals off a bay to form a lagoon. For example, Chilika Lake is a classic example of a bar enclosing a lagoon. Question number 14. What is the mechanism of deflation? So, deflation is a picking up and removal of fine loose particles by wind, creating basins. For example, the deflation hollow found in the desert during intense summer heat. Question number 15. Why are pediments is found in arid zones? So, pediments are erosional plains at the mountain base. They form because wind and occasional sheet wash effectively remove debris from the mountain slope. For example, pediments at the base of Aravalli Hills. Question number 16. Pedestal or mushroom rock. What is pedestal rock or mushroom rock? So, wind blown sand erodes the lower rock surface more rapidly than the top because the sand concentration is highest near the ground. For example, the classic mushroom shaped erosional pillars is found in Jaisalmer region. Question number 17. Transverse versus Barkhan dunes. So, barkhans are crescent shaped formed by unidirectional winds with limited sand, whereas transverse dunes are long ridges perpendicular to the wind formed with abundant sand. For example, barkhans are common in central Thar desert. Question number 18. What is angle of repose? So, the maximum slope angle at which loose materials like sand is stable before it slides. It governs the slip phase gradient. For example, if you pour sand, it will naturally settle at approximately 34 degree. Question number 34 degree angle. Question number 19. What is the process of evolution of peδιplanes? So, the peδιplanes form when pediments coalesce and merge over long periods, creating an extensive flat surface. For example, large expanses of undulating terrain in Rajasthan arid belt. Question number 20. Role of what is the role of geomorphic agents? So, agents like water, wind, ice act as interface between the lithosphere and the atmosphere, balancing crustal growth with surface decay. For example, the ongoing erosion of Himalayas by the Ganges system. So, thanks for listening. Keep listening for further audio classes. Thank you. So the next question is, what is meant by geomorphic process and how do exogenic forces shape the earth's surface? So geomorphic processes are natural processes that shape and modify the earth's surface. Exogenic forces work from outside the earth through agents like rivers, glaciers, waves and wind, etc. These forces cause erosion, transportation and deposition. For example, rivers create valleys, glaciers carve U-shaped valleys and wind forms sand dunes in desert. Next question, explain the three stages of river evolution: youthful stage, mature stage and old stage. So in the youthful stage, vertical erosion is dominant and rivers form deep valleys and waterfalls. In the mature stage, lateral erosion increases and rivers develop meanders and floodplains. In the old stage, deposition becomes dominant and river forms deltas and broad floodplains. The Ganga river shows the different stages along its course. Next question, why is vertical erosion dominant in the youthful stage of a river? So in the youthful stage, the river flows rapidly down steep slopes. Due to high velocity, the river cuts downward into the bedrock. This process is called vertical erosion. It creates V-shaped valleys, gorges and waterfalls. For example, Himalayan rivers like the Alkananda show strong vertical erosion. Next question, how are V-shaped valleys and gorges formed by running water? So fast flowing rivers erode the river bed more deeply than the sides. This vertical erosion forms narrow and deep valleys called V-shaped valleys. When erosion becomes very intense in hard rocks, deep narrow valleys called gorges are formed. In Indus gorge is in the river Indus gorge is a good example. Question number 5. So the next question is, what is a waterfall and how does it gradually retreat upstream? So a waterfall is formed when a river flows over hard and soft rocks. Soft rocks erode faster, creating a steep drop. Continuous erosion at the base cause the waterfall to move backward slowly. This process is called headward erosion. For example, Jog Falls in Karnataka is an example. Next question, explain the formation of potholes in river valleys. So potholes are circular depression formed on the rocky bed of a river. Pebbles and sand carried by the river rotate in swirling water and continuously grind the rock surface. Over time, deep circular holes are formed. Potholes are common in mountain rivers. Next question, what are meanders and why are they mainly formed in the mature stage? So meanders are bends or loops formed in a river channel. In the mature stage, the river flows over gentle slopes and lateral erosion becomes dominant. The outer bank is eroded while the deposition occurs on the inner bank, creating winding bends. The middle course of Ganga has many meanders. Next question, how are floodplains and natural levees formed? So during floods, rivers overflow their banks and deposit fine sediments on a nearby land. Repeated deposition creates flat fertile areas called floodplains. Coarser materials are deposited near the banks, forming raised embankment called natural levees. For example, the northern plains of India are major floodplains. So the next question is, what is an oxbow lake and how does it develop from a meander? So an oxbow lake is a crescent shaped lake formed when a river cuts through the neck of a meander during floods. The old loop gets separated from the main river channel. Many oxbow lakes are found in the Ganga plain. So the next question, explain the formation and significance of deltas with suitable examples. So a delta is formed when a river deposits sediments near its mouth where it enters a sea or lake. The velocity of river decreases, causing deposition. Deltas are fertile and densely populated regions. The Ganga Brahmaputra delta is the world's largest delta. Next question, differentiate between erosional and depositional landforms created by rivers. So erosional landforms are formed when rivers remove material from the earth's surface. For example, V-shaped valley, gorges and waterfalls. Depositional landforms are formed when river deposits sediments. For example, are floodplains, levees and deltas. Next question, how does groundwater creates erosional landforms like caves and sinkholes in limestone regions? So groundwater dissolves soluble rocks like limestone through chemical weathering. Over time, underground cavities and caves are formed. When the roof collapses, sinkholes develop. Such landforms are common in karst region. Meghalaya has many limestone caves. Next question, explain the formation of stalactites and stalagmites inside limestone caves. So water containing dissolved calcium carbonate drips from cave roofs. As water evaporates, minerals are deposited. Deposits hanging from the roof are called stalactites, while deposits rising from the floor are called stalagmites. Over time, they may join to form pillar. Next question, why are glaciers considered powerful agent of erosion? So glaciers move slowly but carry large amounts of rocks and debris. These materials grind and plaque the bedrock, causing strong erosion. Glaciers can carve deep valleys and sharp mountain features. For example, Himalayan glaciers are important examples. Next question, how are sark, arete and U-shaped valleys formed by glaciers? So a sark is a bowl shaped depression formed at the head of glacier. When two sark erode towards each other, a sharp ridge called arete is formed. Glaciers widen and deepen river valleys, forming broad U-shaped valleys. For example, Kashmir valleys show glacial features. Next question, explain the difference between glacial erosion and depositional landforms. So glacial erosional landforms are created by ice erosion such as sark, arete and U-shaped valleys, and depositional landforms are formed when glacier deposits debris such as moraines and outer plains. Both types show the work of moving ice. Next question, how do sea waves are currently modify coastal landforms? So sea waves continuously erode, transport and deposit materials along the coast. Erosion forms the cliffs, caves and stacks, while deposition forms beaches and bergs. For example, coastal landforms are constantly changing due to wave action. Next question, explain the formation of sea cliffs, sea caves, arcs and stacks. So strong wave action erodes the base of coastal rock and forms steep cliffs. Continued erosion creates cave. When the cave enlarge and meet, arches are formed. If the roof collapses, isolated rock pillars called stacks remain. These features are common along the rocky coast. Next question, what is the difference between high rocky coast and low sedimentary coast? So high rocky coast are steep and mainly shaped by erosion. Cliffs, caves and stacks are common there. Low sedimentary coasts are flat and shaped mainly by deposition. Beaches, lagoons and sandbars are common in such coast. Next question, and this is the last question for today. Explain the formation of sand dunes, mushroom rocks and deflation hollows by wind action in desert region. So wind transports sand and deposits it as sand dunes when obstacles reduce wind speed. Mushroom rocks form when wind erosion is stronger near the ground surface, causing the lower part of rock to erode more. Deflation hollows are shallow depressions formed when wind removes loose particles from the surface. These landforms are common in third desert. So thanks for listening. Keep listening for further audio classes. Thank you.